That's why. Didn't.
Oh, we're here to discuss the budgets today. I think the first one we're gonna do is adult probation. No, yes, just give an overall view about your budget and any changes that you're interested in. So the only changes that are being made, relate to salaries. The general fund was changed to reflect the required salaries based on that mandatory salary schedule established by the state. The only change that was made to that particular budget. And I believe you should only have two budgets in front of you this year instead of seven or three. So the other one is the probation user fee budget. That budget, you're gonna see a difference in for this reason. At the time we submitted the budget, normally we would have three budgets. One budget would be for grant funds that we receive. At the time that we submitted our budgets to the council, we were told not to anticipate getting any of that grant funding. So what we did was we took the money that normally would come from that grant fund, moved them into that probation user fee account. We're still waiting to find out to what extent, if any, we're getting grant funds. As of this past week, we were told we are getting grant funds, but they have not sent us a budget yet to show what exactly we're getting. So we're not in a position now to make changes, but we wanted to err on the side of caution, move those funds into that PUF account. So those are the only things that are being changed. We did not make any changes to any other line items for office supplies, things like that. Questions? Concerns, comments?
So you're saying that you were told you're not getting grant funds, but now you are getting grant funds.
So we were told that it was likely we were not going to get that funding again. And then we later learned that information wasn't accurate and that we are getting grant funding.
And there's actually no changes in your budget,
Not to any,
except for do you have any mandated?
Yeah, the state mandated are the only changes.
first budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this one has where they consolidated two together. And that's a budget.
Sorry, we wanted me to make sure that we did set the recording.
I got it.
Thank you.
So you consolidated two budgets into one.
Yes. Because it was grant money and then user fees.
Yeah, they're both their funny funds, so they kept all funny funds together.
Yes, ma'am. We're trying to be. Any other questions? For Melanie? Well, I guess we'll move on to juvenile detention center, general fund.
Yes, I will ask. So do you guys have any general estimated timeline on, like, when you will know about the grants? Is it
So,
just by the end of the year?
yes.
Pretty
yeah.
much.
We have a grant letter with a total award amount,
Mhm.
but some of those funds we share with a jail officer.
Correct.
So we don't know to what extent those funds are coming to us or to the jail officer. We just have a bottom line amount.
Okay.
But we know that it's going to be coming in the near future.
Cool.
Yep.
Was that the same grant? We had problems with overuse of one of them from another department.
Yep. But that's all fixed. Yes, it is.
Any other questions?
Well, how can you, take three budgets and put them into two, and there's not gonna be any ramifications from that, or?
So the money that would normally come from that grant fund, we just moved that over to have it showing on paper that we would draw it from our probation user fee account. And that account is solvent enough to where we would be able to fund that if we needed to. But we were very hopeful that we weren't going to need to draw from that account. But part of keeping that account solvent is so that if we run into a situation like this, we don't have to worry about having to cut employees or having programming.
Is this the first time this has ever happened?
It's the first time that we were told we would not get that funding.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Um, Well, no more questions at this time.
No, is there something that concerned you, Ryan?
Well-
Was there, or something, is it an issue if you take two? I think she's concerned about taking two accounts and moving them in one, so she wants clarification, I think is what.
Well, I'm already down the road. Well,
Yeah, they probably couldn't sustain it for multiple years. But for at least, 1 year, maybe 2 years, they can easily move that one budget into the other budget.
so down the road somewhere. It's,
Well, hopefully, once they find out the amount of money they get back in, then they can move that back into that fund. And that the second fund doesn't get hit as hard, so it's,
See, certain funds you cannot take below zero. Grant funds you can take below because you know the money's coming in. What she's trying to do is protect her user fee funds to make sure that the money is there, waiting for the grant money to come in, and then she'll move it back over
okay.
to grant.
So typically in January, we have to come back before the council because we don't know what that grant award is gonna be at the time that our budgets are submitted. So we always have to come back in January to make the adjustment for what the actual award was. So in anticipation that we were going to get something, we knew that we would have to come back before the council in January anyway to make the adjustment. So once we know exactly what that grant budget looks like, then we'll be back before the council in January to make that appropriation.
Feel better about that?
A little bit. I'm always a little bit leery about grant funds, as Allison could probably tell you.
Well, we've been burnt a couple times with them,
Yeah,
more than a couple.
yeah.
And then when we put individuals in there, the grants disappear or they decide to discontinue them,
That's
we
exactly
can't
right.
cover anything.
Thank you. Exactly.
And that's why we try to not put personnel in grants. We can do hourly, but we prefer not to put the personnel full-time in grant money. Okay, juvenile detention centers.
For general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
So we obviously have the mandatory increases, the mandated salaries in there that will raise the salary line item. However, it will go down just a little bit because since we were able to implement that level system with all of our DOs, we have far more level ones now because a few of our people who were here a lot longer, they left. So that's going to change as well. So that's going to reduce that by like $70. But the big item is something that I already talked with the council about is our hourly. One of the big things is that we do want an increase of $75,000 in our hourly. That is going to really help in regards to not only keep us with the tiered system, because when we started tiered system with the DOs, obviously we also have to do a salary rate also for an hourly rate for our DOs for their experience as well. Because we really need to make sure that we're holding on to those people and keeping them and paying them what they would be making in comparison with the full-time people. So you guys did increase my budget by about $40,000. What was it last month?
Yeah, that's what I thought you asked.
And an additional, I asked for 50, but I was able to do 10,000 in transfers for the rest of this year. So, like I said, the 40,000, that was a really good thing to get us through this year, but next year I'm gonna need the 75. One of the other big things is because we've talked a lot about an LPN. As you all are aware, we are woefully understaffed in regards to our medical services in the detention center. We're 24/7. We only have one full-time nurse. We have a doctor that comes out only for an hour a week. And that's it. We are a 24/7 facility. We do med passes. We have critical care situations that happen. There's a lot of things happen with these kiddos. A lot of the kids come into our centers with a lot of medical and mental health needs that have been untreated. And so it's pretty scary sometimes that we have medically trained staff that's actually dispensing medications in the evening when the nurses are there and over the weekends and things like that. So, and we've had a few issues in regards to that this year. And so it's really helpful for us that for the health department, we had them pretty much look at our entire medical program in July. And they even agreed that we are woefully understaffed in regards to our medical needs for the kids. And they suggested an LPN. Actually, they thought 2 LPNs would actually be better part-time. So we wouldn't have to worry about benefits and things like that. But then we could have round-the-clock care for the kids on the weekends We can have less med pass situations. We can deal with a lot of the critical care situations that are going on call, because our nurse is on call 24/7. And so when our nurse is on vacation or sick, who's on call? So this would also help with that backup as well. So in our request, we did ask for at least $25,000 of that 75 to go towards one part-time LPN, although again, we need two. But I also understood that there's some financial situations going on with the budget, so, that's one of the things that we are requesting for that as well.
Now, is this the first time you've had an LPN? And you were, didn't we do this medical study, and this is one thing they dinged you on was, medical, where you did have some,
We had some issues.
yes.
In regards to
I remember
medication.
reading that.
Yep, we did have some issues regarding some medical, some medication. Yeah.
To the nurse, that we have presently, she prepares all the medicines, the medications and stuff. When she's there during the day, she's dispensing the medications. But when she leaves, in the evening medication and the weekend medication, she's prepared it. But it's getting administered by detention officers. And they have some basic kind of training in the administration of medicine, but they're not medical staff, and we have experienced some medication error on more than one occasion.
What's the liability for the county on that? I guess that's big, I think the liability is probably worse than the amount of money that we would invest in.
And well, and that was one of our big concerns. I mean, the primary concern is, what does that mean health-wise for the juvenile, of course, but secondarily for the county, what is the liability from there? And I don't know what what that would mean, correlate in money and stuff, but I would imagine it could be a pretty big deal, So obviously, we want to avoid it for a number of reasons. So having a part-time LPN, actually having two would be, something that would be ideal. But we'd be very, very happy to achieve one at this point and try to go from there.
I did notice that a couple of your items did go down. Your uniforms went down about 1430, and your food and groceries down 5,000. Then also your household and bedding went down $182.
Yeah, you
It was the
kind
transfer.
of just move stuff around.
Yeah, we moved stuff around this year, yeah.
The only
So we
other,
could go into hourly. for
the
this year.
only other real big one, where are you guys at on the vehicle?
So we are still, working with the sheriff's department to obtain a vehicle.
Okay.
If we do obtain a vehicle, it is gonna be a used vehicle that is from their fleet. So obviously it's gonna have some wear and tear on it. It's gonna be one that's older model because not really gonna be more usable for their staff, but it might be okay for us. So we'll be in the fleet. But I'll be honest with you, I mean, the last time we got a brand new vehicle for the detention center was in 2012. So, and that was the commissioners gave us that because at that point we had, remember the blue bomber guys? That was on its last leg and we had to beg for one, because we needed it. We do a ton of transports every single year. We have to maintain kids' medical and mental health needs. We have to be able to transport to the Department of Correction. We have officers out in the field every single day, doing community health checks for all of our kids. So we're out all the time regarding that. So we have to have at least two vehicles. One, in case there's an emergency, we need to do a transport, but we also need another vehicle in order to be able to go out and do our home checks and things like that and our other transports. So the one vehicle we have is the 2012 minivan that commissioners gave us. And then the other one was gifted to us by Judge DeBoer. And that has like 150,000 miles on it and it's on its last leg.
How much was the one that caused the issues with the tires going flat and things like that sort?
That one is the Traverse. That's the one that Judge DeBoer gifted us. And the other one was having issues in regards to air conditioning and
No air
and
conditioning.
there's no air conditioning and the power windows went down on one of our officers as we were down south in the middle of winter transporting a kid.
Yeah.
And we had to
Go back
like,
up.
we wouldn't come back up. And so they're using Gorilla Tape and plastic to try to get back home.
I'd like to,
So-
if I may too, I mean, we about a decade ago took over the transports of our juveniles. The sheriff's department used to do it. And, you know, it was a problem for them. They're taking officers off the road to do that and stuff. So we took over, we probably do 95% of our transports and only ask them to do a transport when we have a really super volatile kid or, you know, something out of the ordinary. So we do 95% of our transports, which saves the sheriff's department from having to do them. But if we can't get a reliable vehicle, we're gonna have to go back to asking the sheriff's department to do that. So, which is, you know, I mean, I would hope that they would consider that when they're talking about what type of vehicle to give us, you know.
Interesting. And all the talks that we've had, you've never quite remembered bringing it up about a vehicle. Problem, and it's something that's been ongoing.
This has been ongoing for a couple.
I think they've just been handling it, but that's like, because they knew that money was tight.
Yeah.
And since they have mandates and things of that sort.
Is this price for a lot purchase?
This is for, this is actually the quote that I received from, the money that I received was, the quote was from Gary Gear.
Okay,
And so he actually said this is how much they would cost, it would cost for a brand new transport vehicle for them with the upgrades regarding the split car that we will definitely need as well between the driver and the passenger.
Have you asked the commissioners about this?
Yeah.
Don't they have a need or?
Well, we have the
We've been-
CCD money, but most of the money goes to the sheriff's department.
Well, and when things, I've been asked about this in the past, the statement that I received was that the commissioners were no longer purchasing vehicles and that each of the county departments need to go through their own budgets in order to get them. I might be wrong, I don't know, but that was what I was told in the past. So I don't know. if
How
that's
far
true or not.
past was that?
A couple years ago.
Oh, a couple of years?
Yeah, a couple years ago. Like I said, we are working closely with the sheriff's department to see if we can get at least one of their fleet vehicles. Again, it's gonna be a loan, it's gonna be a used car. Again, I mean, I feel like juvenile services has a really strong history of not asking for things unless we really, really need it. And we try to piece things together and find grants, and we take our vehicles to the garage like religiously, you know, ask Butch over there. We are there when there needs an oil change. We are there when the tires are getting low. We're on target with that. You know, in addition, you know, like for a lot of the things going on in our building and falling apart and things like that, we've tried very hard to try to fix these things on our own. So we really don't ask.
I'm aware of that, and I've been your champion,
You have to,
trying to tell people
you have to.
that your building and everything like that needs attention
Mhm.
for years.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. So I just feel like it is time for us to at least get a brand new vehicle. You know, it's been since 2012. And we use it every day.
Three cars you have now.
We have two.
That's it. That includes field visits.
We have the loaner from Judge, we have the gift from Judge DeBoer, her Traverse that has over 150,000 miles on it. And we have the van that we got from the commissioners in 2012.
Which also has excess of 150,000 miles.
It has a lot of miles on it.
Well, you've got to think, when you start talking about liability there too, if a car breaks down, you're transporting somebody and they're not always easy. And they are sometimes edgy, but then you've got to feel that you've got to control that situation plus the vehicle.
The winter situation we had with the window was, it's kind of comical to talk about now because it's, you know, it's in the past, but these two officers were transporting it was a female resident and, you know, she had a lot of trauma, all kinds of things, and, you know, the windows quit working and it's freezing in there. They've got sleet coming in the windows and stuff. And so one of the staff members, probation officer, climbed into the back seat with her, which they're not supposed to do for safety reasons. Wrapped her in blankets, trying to keep her warm and stuff. And they had to go to a Walmart and buy some Gorilla Tape and, you know, plastic sheeting, trying to keep at least the elements from getting in, but it did nothing to retain any heat. And it was one of those situations where they were that close to pulling over and having to call the sheriff's department, and they weren't even at their locale yet. They probably had to travel through 2 more, counties to get where they needed to go, and they would have to keep trying to call, okay, now we're on this county line, let's get another sheriff, and it was a mess. So,
And how long ago was this?
last one.
Alice, how many, people do you have in-house in your
In the detention center,
Judy? How many, what are they called?
Residents.
Residents.
residents, we can hold up to
What's the
24.
proper term for the record?
We can hold up to 24,
How many?
up to 24.
And how many do you have? Are they on like house arrest? Do you do the field visits or what do you do the field visits?
So that's just for in the detention center for the secure area that the kids can't leave, it's 24.
Right.
The house arrest unit, people, I'm not really sure where we're at with numbers on
I would
that
say
one.
we average anywhere between probably 30 up to 40, 45 youth who could be on one form of house arrest at a time. And so then we have our home detention officers going out on a nightly basis to check on those kids as well.
But we also have probation officers that are going out and doing home visits and placement visits. And, for any kid that's in placement, the officers have to have at least monthly visits with them and stuff. So those are long distance, trips usually. They're down south and.
Have to have a face to face.
And then the transports, what would that entail? Is that going to pick some?
So we
Right.
might have to pick up a resident from a residential facility or drop them off at a residential facility, which, I mean, we've even had to take kids to Tennessee before. And then we also have kids that are in Department of Corrections. And on the most part, we were able to work with the sheriff's department to help us out on the more volatile ones, but we'll go and pick them up and drop them off for diagnostics and things like that. The other thing that we have is we have all of our kids in the detention center that also have doctor's appointments, therapy appointments, psychiatric appointments, all that. We want to make sure that they have the continuity of care while they're with us.
So are we mandated to transport for medical? Or let's just say some kid has an earache. Are we required to do that, or is that like a guardian, or do we call somebody for this kid to come get them and take them, or do we?
No,
have to
these are
do-
kids that are in secure detention. They
Yep.
have to be,
Yeah.
they are in our custody and we have to be present for any doctor's appointments, mental health appointments, anything like that. They cannot be,
If
they're
they go by the
handcuffed,
they're handcuffed and the staff member has to go with them and stuff.
And we have to follow the ambulance in.
if we do a 911.
Beautiful.
We're gonna go back to the question. You have, one LPN part-time,
We don't have any LPN.
You don't
right now. I have one full-time RN.
RN, and she manages the meds.
Monday through Friday, manages all the medication during the day.
And
So we have med passes at 8 AM, 1 PM, and at 7 PM.
your staff, when they have to distribute, but do they go like through a certification or something? Do they have to go with any on just
Health trained
how
staff.
to distribute meds, or is there anything like that?
There
that's out
is.
there? You're talking about liability.
Right.
If we were to say that a staff member was
They get some
distributing,
basic
Yeah.
training from our medical staff on how to administer the medication.
Yes.
So, but there's no certification process,
Nothing.
things like that, and. So, and when we're talking about our one registered nurse, being responsible for kind of the prepping of meds and doing that stuff, that's just one, of course, one component of what she's doing. She's also doing all the medical management in other areas, and it's not uncommon for the kids that we detain to have chronic medical issues like diabetes, blood pressure, allergies. So she's trying to coordinate all the special dietary stuff too and everything. And the medical standards alone, there's 205 standards that we are obligated to be in compliance with through the Department of Correction. And I think there's 62 of those are medical standards. And so there's so many things she has to do to keep us in compliance with those standards too. So it's a lot for, one individual. And most of those standards need to be done by a medical person to be compliant with the standards too. It's not like somebody like me can just go in there and go, yeah, we do that, or we do that, it has to, so it's a lot.
Everything that she does has to go through that individual. I used to work at the University of Chicago Hospital. And I would have people come in at the front desk and say, I got a little bit headache, can you give me an aspirin? I said, I can't do that. So because,
Right.
Suit right off the bat. But as long as she's doing this and having it, say like a tray, and this person gets this, this, and this, and they've been trained on who gets what and how many, and stand and make sure they take it, that covers your liability, does it not?
Are we required by statute, are you required to have a medical person on staff? You have to have one.
You have to have at least a medical personnel available to your center.
So they could be on call.
Yeah.
Because years ago, is that what you had?
We had a rotation of 3 nurses that were on call too, which was not.
You did have more staff several years ago where, didn't you have like a part-time nurse or?
We had 3 on-call nurses.
Yeah.
That was it. That they would just rotate. We just knew who was gonna be on call for that month.
So what happened to them?
We got a
Because now
full-time
you got,
nurse.
you got a
Yeah.
full-time nurse.
which upgraded our medical care,
Yeah.
immensely. But, she's still just one individual, and when she goes on vacation and gets sick
I
herself.
remember you dissolved salary or something to get, I don't know, I can't remember the details, but it seemed like,
Are you required to accept people that have medical, what if it's some, somebody had a heart condition?
we take them.
We have, we
Just
can't
like the
say we're
jails.
not.
Just like
The
the
jail, they have to take them.
Somebody's a criminal and they're commit a criminal act or have or admitted, pursuant to a court order, we have to take
So
them.
there's no saying we're not equipped to be able to handle some heart condition. We have to take.
In regards to an LPN, are they covered the same way at our end as 5-year liability? I mean, they're different schooling, 1 year versus 4. So would they be covered by the same liability, say an RN would be, and also the capability that handing out meds, would that be covered by them as well?
And
And again, this is
there's
a-
so many things that the RN would still have to do. But they just, LPNs administer medicine in clinics
Yeah.
and hospitals and, stuff like that. So
And this is a part-time
Part-time.
nurse.
And again, this was a recommendation of the health department after they looked through all of our medical policies as they were. And they felt that we were woefully understaffed as well in regards to medical care for the kids.
You have like an annual report. We get that. We get that
we give copies of the annual report to the council and the commissioners.
this year,
Yeah,
2021,
it probably came out in March.
for last year.
For the last year, yeah.
Yeah.
So I can get you another copy of
Yeah,
it.
please. I'm just kind of, when you're talking about just your numbers and, the busyness of. Take a look at that.
I know there was a time when, first started, if I'm not wrong, we had to have a contract with White County because we had so many individuals.
We stopped taking other counties' kids because, we're having a hard enough time, managing our own. And so we suspended those contracts. We had, contracts with 2 counties. Who was it? It was Jasper and Stark. And suspended those. And, there might be times where they still make a request and we might, if we have low numbers, feel we can accommodate it, we will, but we no longer, have the beds set aside for them and stuff.
Which is hard managed because unfortunately, then we had to look at options after we'd already got.
Mhm.
And our hands are tied.
Right.
The question I have is, as you have been there a while, our population, as it's going to be seeing that the number of residents that you have has increased as well, as that is the case, let's go forward another 5 years, be a little bit proactive. Do you see that number increasing as well too, just for the demographics of having more people?
I see our numbers going up, but what I also see even more importantly is the increase in regards to medical and mental health needs. That's gone up exponentially. I mean, when you go into the center right now, pretty much 80 to 90% of our kids are on some type of psychotropic medication. And we had one boy that we just sent to the state hospital that was on 9 medications. 2 of which were controlled substances, so don't even get me started on that whole thing, because that's a whole other procedure right there. With controlled substance and having to count them every single shift and making sure that we're accountable to exactly how many pills we have, and they have to be locked separately and counted separately. It's a whole other process for those. But he was on some pretty heavy duty medications, which can Haldol and lithium and methamphetamine, and it means,
Wow.
and so we have staff, at our 7, 8 o'clock med pass in the evening. That's what we were doing. That's what we were doing.
We give out Suboxone, So,
Only if it's not, if it's overtime. We've had kids that aren't stopped.
is that like a quarter thing, or is that the?
Yeah.
We have the same problems that they do in the jail. I mean, we have the same type of population, they're just younger, you know,
Yeah.
but they present with all the same problems. They have the same, you know, most of their population, you know, has chronic health problems or mental health problems as well and things like that. And, I guarantee you, they got more staff, you know. We just need a little help.
Yeah.
And we know it, we know when I say little help, it's a big ask.
Partner with
Is there any way that, I know the health department said you guys need that LPN.
So,
Is there any way you can partner with the health department?
so they're, how do I explain it? So when we were without a nurse for several weeks, the health department did come in and would help with some on-call things. But in regards to medications and things like that, they weren't able to do that because it wasn't under the umbrella of what the health department is able to do. So they were able to look at our policies and procedures and help us with protocols and things like that, and then help with some on-call things. But other than that, they were not allowed to do the
Administration of medicine.
administration of medicine. Thank you.
I was just thinking with that new, you know, with the SB.
Grant.
the
Yeah, just so you know, we are in the process of submitting a proposal for some of that SB4 funding. And one of the things that we put in there was 2 part-time LPNs. But we consulted with the health department on that, and Dr. Stamp, and I can't remember the other doctor's name. But they both indicated that the SB4 money is typically not for that and probably would not be approved. We're submitting it as a request anyways.
Who makes that decision, the board, the health?
They
board,
have a
who
health
appeals
board
to
that
the
does
state,
that.
Which I understand that,
Yeah.
but that's kind of one of the things that frustrates me is well, the department gets millions of dollars, and then I see we're struggling here with kids that are our kids with mental health problems, and SB4 is supposed to help mental health problems. So then why wouldn't it make sense that the health department actually help
I
our
was
juvenile?
excited because I thought it was a.
Well, I would keep pressuring on that too.
Well, we are.
That's one of
We're
those things
submitting
that
it.
I think.
Yeah, and we're gonna, and they said they would sit down and meet with us, and help us kind of craft it and, you know, increase our chances of having a successful proposal. They're being very, you know, helpful and
Oh, yeah,
cooperative with
they've been
us and, you know, but they just said that they really did not think the board would approve that, but, you know, I'm still pushing for it because like you, I think it's kind of an obvious thing. It's like, well.
There's a lot of obvious
What
things
else?
out there, like what else do we need to do? I mean, if they have money, this is a concern, then this should be something
Right.
that you would think we can.
Right.
I mean, we're not asking for a car from the health department, we're asking for mental health, we're
Right.
asking for LPN, this is something that would be in their purview of
Right.
us. of
So
that
we are
SB4
requesting that,
grant.
and if for some reason by some stroke of luck, it gets approved,
Yeah.
then we would come, you know, make sure the county council knows that we no longer need to request that as a budgetary request, but, you know, we haven't, you know, obviously heard anything yet. It's not even a formal proposal yet.
You guys carry Narcan? You have
We do have
Narcan?
that, yeah.
So you did put in a formal proposal to help them?
We have a proposal that's like in a rough draft form that we're submitting to them next week. And they're gonna take a look at it and help us refine it and stuff. And then, you know, just a couple days later, it's gonna go in as a formal.
Mhm.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but it'll go out of my brain, trust me. We had, a resident that died in our facility, about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yes.
And we were found not liable in that situation. But he had, undiagnosed cardiac problems and came out of the gym and just collapsed and died. And, you know, we had staff that were doing CPR and all our staff is certified and all that stuff. But he, you know, he died and it was one of those moments where you're like, you know, that was the first time we had experienced that. So it's one of those things where, yeah, and I honestly, how we did not get sued in that moment, I have no idea. But they did not come after us. They went after the doctor, you know, that contracts with us. But You know, so I mean, something's gonna happen sooner or later. Sure hope it doesn't, but, you know, the odds are it probably will at some point.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, we had a very brittle type 1 diabetic type 1. You know, and we're having to check his sugars and all that. Right now, we have a boy that has some cardiac issues. We have to take his blood pressure 3 times a day.
And so we have staff doing that, because we don't have a nurse there. So
But your nurse does that.
Not all the
Not-
time, not in the evening.
she clocks out, you know, after being there for 8 hours, she goes home. So we've got the 3 to 11, the midnight shifts, the weekend shifts, where our detention officers are doing that. They've been shown how to do a blood pressure, but if something
Yeah, my
goes
sister
wrong.
was a second grade school teacher up in Michigan. She had to change a trach.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you don't have money, it's amazing what teachers have to do, so,
Well, sure.
and staff, I would
We
imagine,
had
but
kids with
it's
colostomy bags.
unbelievable, believe it or not, up there, when you don't have the funding to
Yeah.
have nurses in schools,
Yeah.
but what they're expecting to teach
Yeah.
you, or,
Yeah.
you know,
So it's the same
true
thing.
story.
If we have a detention officer checking
In Michigan.
somebody's
Michigan.
blood pressure and it
True
goes
story.
too high and he strokes out and
Years
dies,
teacher.
I would imagine somebody's gonna come, you know, with a lawsuit in hand. I think that's-
Well, I'm hopeful that when you submit that grant, that the health department will really look at that and say this is a need, especially with mental health, and, you know, put
To
it
me,
on,
it was a
put it,
no-brainer. I was
Yeah,
surprised when they said no.
I would say it's a no-brainer too.
You know.
I would really be shocked if they wouldn't help you guys out with that.
I was just curious about something, and I've been sitting here thinking about it, I really don't want to open this can of worms, but I'm going to, because I'd like to see the vehicle. The opioid money.
That was my second thing I was gonna bring up, the
Yeah.
opioid
The
money.
opioid money and
Car.
if we can give several million to the Memorial Opera for the opioid money, why couldn't we use that same logic?
That was our, that was our.
Art money, why can't we use the same logic on the, with the opioid money for a car for them? Using that, it would help increase the transportation and safety in regards to the residents that they have. Using the fact that some of them are having concerns with, opioid type of thing.
Well, some of them that are going to residential placements are going because of their addiction.
Okay, so
Well, but here's the thing, we don't even have to make the case. We have unrestricted and restricted. We could take it out of the unrestricted and call it a day and get a car. And, I mean, honestly, I'm embarrassed when I'm talking about transporting kids and sleeps coming out and going to buy in Walmart and putting plastic. This is embarrassing, guys. I mean, what kind of county, I'd like to have a classy county. We have good employees, and I think you should have a car that the windows roll up when you're transporting kids. I mean, that to me is a minimum.
I'm amazed that you've done it this long.
If the one car doesn't have air, and so they're.
You're going to drive in the fall and winter.
Well, like, the detention officers are taking that car in the 90-degree
Yeah.
weather, because they can have their windows down and leaving the van that has 100 and whatever thousand miles on it in case there's an emergency.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah,
try
this
to
is something
weigh
that
one
we
with
have
the
to
other.
definitely talk about and get this fixed. I mean, between, and I'll bring it up, between corners, cars, their car, I mean, there's just things that, in my opinion, have to be done and done right.
Well, they can't have a summer and winter vehicle, the one with the hole in the window, that's the summer vehicle.
Yeah.
You know.
And I just want to point out that this is a vehicle that stays at the center. These are
Right,
not
they're not
takeoff
driving home.
vehicles,
No,
they're not
I figured that.
works or anything like that. No, they are vehicles that stay at the center.
Kind of.
Come on, kids, read the back.
Can I take the non-air?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Right, no, I know. I figured that one out. Nobody was taking a vehicle.
I think we should look into that opioid.
This, I have car and I have LPN, I have money. Those are two things we definitely have to look into and figure out here, so. There's no question that has to be looked
Thank
into and figured out.
I appreciate
Allison, if you can do me two things.
Mhm.
A,
That one car without the.
if we can take at least the car ask out of the general fund, I think the hourly should be fine. Because we can find the car either in opioid, CCD, other places. The other thing I would like you to do is, instead of a full out purchase, if you could also look up a lease option. Just in case, because if you guys are using these vehicles that much, if you are, you know, turning them over. And again, I know you guys are doing everything you can to expand them and make them stretch as long as you can, but to me, there's also not so much point to that if every 4 or 5 years you can get a new vehicle.
How does that work? Can I just pose a question? If we had a lease vehicle that needed some maintenance on it. You know, right now we take a fleet vehicle from the sheriff's department, and even though we don't get, you know, a pristine car, if we take it to them and say it needs some repairs, they're pretty responsive about, you know, getting it back to us quickly, because that would be key, us being able to get a vehicle back to us quickly. We don't have the same type of control parameters, if you will.
I would probably want where the sheriff's department purchases their vehicles.
Well, that's what she did, and she reached out to Gary
Yeah,
to get
Gary
the
would
purchase
know.
price, but.
And I think then if they know that, then you can also take it to the garage,
The
because
garage.
some of those new ones, or you could take it if it's more involved to the dealership.
Well, I don't know if they had to install a spit shield or anything, if that would, to do that on
Oh,
a. vehicle
I
or
think
something.
they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what they do, we just dealt with the coroners asking for a vehicle also. Although, you know, we tried to get her a vehicle out of the opioid money and they would not give it to her, just to let you know. That's not to say it won't happen for you. But what happens is you get the base and then it takes almost a year to 18 months to get a vehicle because then they have to put the other parts in. And then what happens is when the lease is over, then you get a new one.
Only type of thing that we would need in is a spit guard. The spit shield.
For what?
Spit shield, so we can't spit it on.
They can.
It's just that-
It's just a piece of plastic. Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
we.
They can't get
In
into
the back seat from
They
the.
can't get.
They can't get to the driver and stuff. So you're suggesting that we take
Just-
the car out of the general fund?
Well, and again, because we have it built into other budgets that we can look at this now.
You have 4 council members here that are on your side. All you need is a majority, and they said the 4.
We'll get you a car.
Yeah.
We'll take it out of the
Okay.
general fund.
It just won't be out of this one.
Okay.
That's it.
As long as I get a car.
We're trying
He
to
actually,
get
our
you a car.
home detention officer on his own time will take it.
And dime.
Yes, and he pays for
He
it.
pays
He
for it.
always makes sure it gets washed and vacuumed and all of that.
Then every sibling's, offer.
Okay, we have like,
So yes,
5 more budgets.
Yes.
Okay, can we go to codes?
no changes.
No changes on codes? There's a little bit of an increase, but I assume it's FICA for something else. Right?
It's fine.
So is anything else for juvenile detention? I saw Chris rolling his eyes over there. He'd love to talk.
No, it's. You want me to stop yapping?
Gonna move on to juvenile probation.
Okay, let's start with general fund. I know this is a big aspect here, and let me kind of break down what we're looking at and why we're asking for what we're asking. So, the increase this year is 170,089. 85,467 of that is in line with the minimum salary schedules, for the state of Indiana for probation officers.
That's mandated or not?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so 85 out of the 17.
Correct.
Correct,
Correct.
correct, thank you.
Okay, and then we're asking for the 2 new additional officers, for a total of 84,622. And that's for 2 officers at the lowest, level, you know, pay rate, the entry level pay rate for in the salary schedule. So we have not added a new probation officer to our probation department since 2013. So it's going on 11 years since we've had a new probation officer added. Within the state of Indiana, there's been considerable changes in the roles and responsibilities of probation officers in that last 11 years. Within that time, we've had a state mandated risk and needs assessment that just across the board. It's called the Indiana Youth Assessment System that the state requires us to use. And it's used at various points in the juvenile's entry into the system, all the way through probation and being placed on formal probation. Much better than what we used to have, but it's a much more in-depth assessment, but it does identifies risk and needs, helps us in the formation of a case plan. But again, it's more detail oriented, takes more time for the officers to complete that. Also within that last time, many of you have probably heard us talk about it, some of our staff meetings. We've had the Indiana, or the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative, okay, JDAI, we talk about it almost every meeting. But the premise behind that, it is a statewide initiative to reduce the number of youth that we're putting in incarceration or out of home placement and keeping them in the community. And to do that, we have to establish programming within the community here, within our center, to kind of take place of what we think we might have, put them out of the community to take care of in the past. And so because of that, over the last 10 years, we have developed all kinds of programs for the youth that are, coming, many of them through our facility, on the backs of our employees actually completing or participating in those programs and running those programs. So we've had a day and evening reporting center that we've kind of established, and we run both day and some of the evening as well. We have a teen court program where youth go before kids, their own peers, and have to talk about their offense, and then the jury, who's again out with their peers, has to decide their fate. And so that's a program that we've used. We've developed a vape program because vaping has become so prolific with use of marijuana cartridges in place of that. And so we have a program that addresses that use. We've had enhanced home detention monitoring. You guys, many of you probably know we have our drug court that we've had for many years. In the last 10 years, we've added a truancy court to that not only works with youth, but it is also we work with parents of elementary kids. So we've had elementary youth parents on probation with us going through that truancy court. And then we've also had the mental health court. So that's another program that we've developed in the last 10 years. We've worked with other agencies that actually come into our facility, and they provide substance abuse and youth treatment, pro-social decision-making, life skills groups. We may not run all those programs, but we are providing staff after hours to make sure that it's a safe environment and everything goes smooth. Wednesdays are huge at our facility. We have programming that goes to oftentimes till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, because we're doing after hours programming, and it's this kind of programming that's taking place in those. We've had, I think everybody can attest that the kids that we're getting over the last 10 years, in the last 5 years, are having many more mental health issues. They're having more violent crimes. We've had more gun offenses in the last 3 years than I can remember. Kids having possession of handguns that are loaded, shootings, those type of things. And so the officers that we have right now, they're doing a good job, but they're right at that risk of just being able to barely put out the proverbial fires that they see. We're not able to do some of that proactive work that we'd like to do with the youth, that it's really going to make a big difference in reducing recidivism and more criminal offenses. And so that's why we're looking to kind of get those additional officers to fill those gaps. We've recently had half our staff trained on something called Carry Guides and Bits. I know Adult has been using this for years, but it's a program that you can actually, it's like an intervention program where you sit down and the officer would work with the youth based on their risk and needs. They have all kinds of different vignettes that they can work with the youth, where you're sitting down working through kind of cognitive behavioral activities with them to help reduce risk. And so we're going to get the rest of our staff trained in December here, and then we're going to kind of institute that. So that's why we're looking for those additional officers, just so that we can do the good work that we need to do to reduce risk for these youth that we're working with. So those are the two areas of increase for the general fund. I did have one additional increase that I first talked to tried to go through the commissioners, was our duress system. I think I sent a letter as well to the council. So the commissioners indicated that they wanted me to go through the council when I tried to get on their agenda. And then I submitted a letter to the council requesting to get on last month's, I think it was August, August agenda, this month's. But they asked that I include it in the budget. this for this year's budget. Are you familiar with that at all? Okay, so we have a duress system in our facility. It's probably back from 2012, right? And so we have little handheld duress buttons that when pressed, alert, go to a system, send a signal to a system back in the detention center. Our probation officers use them, our detention officers use them, but when that is pressed, yeah, so when it's pressed in a duress situation, it sends a signal to this box that's in detention, that then sends out a signal, broadcasts a signal to handheld radios that we have. And we have those kind of throughout. Security has one, I have one, Monica has one, detention has them. And so it sends out a signal saying where the duress button was pushed and that assistance is needed. We're then able to respond to that. Our radios that we have, were I think original radios. They don't even make them anymore. They're no longer in service. And they really don't hold charges on their batteries. And so we were looking to, requesting a proposal that we upgrade that duress system. I think there's some licensure that was included in that. There was a repeater system that would allow our radios, because there's so much concrete in the building. There are some reception issues at far ends of the building, and so this repeater system would actually kind of help boost that signal and make it where we can speak with each other over the radios and make sure we got those alerts, always. So I think I submitted that. It was roughly just under 15,000 under data processing equipment in the general fund. So that was not in my original budget that we submitted last month. But I think Joy had reached out to me and said that you guys didn't want to hear it in August, but would prefer that I put it on. So I don't know if I could amend that still and put that on this year's budget or not.
Because it's not in this.
It's not in the budget that we submitted in July. But it would be, I don't know if that's an addition we could do here. We were in such dire straits because the radios weren't keeping their signal. We were able to order some of those radios and just pay for them out of our existing user fees funds. So I don't think it's going to be as high as what we're asking for there. So it would be less than that, but if that's something that we could at least.
The duress system was not working in general too. It was more than just the radios, the different duress buttons in the various sections of the building weren't working, right?
Right, we found out that some of them needed replacement of batteries and then there are some that still, we need to reprogram them, but
Why did the commissioners think that this was a county council thing and not a facilities thing?
they didn't indicate, well, they asked if I had talked with the facilities manager, which I have since done so, and we're gonna schedule a walkthrough to kind of talk about it further. But they just asked if I had approached the council about it.
Because we thought it was, the reason we went to the commissioners first is because it seemed like it was, like a building thing. And that's how we always understood that that's kind of, what we should be doing, but I guess they.
Can you not communicate now in your building in certain spots?
With the new radios, we are a lot better, but if we're on far ends, and they're VHF radios, and that's what the system was set up originally, so we're kind of building off of what the original system was. If I'm on the front side of the building and someone's on the back side, it's even with new radios, they're 5-watt radios, it's a little staticky.
So there's the rest system, if somebody is on a certain spot and they hit the direct.
Well, the rest seems to come through okay, but this would be like after
But then they could
communication.
call and say,
Right,
I
we
need
can say,
help.
yeah, we can just answer.
The other way it
You
is
get a
now,
couple different, bids or something, I think, there's some like local companies that
I-
do some.
we-
I
we-
Well,
I got a
911
bid.
is actually looking at their information and changing some of theirs. So I was talking to Mike just a second ago, and we're wondering if we might be able to find some money within that. Yeah.
this whole, what kind of radios you have?
They're, do you know what they're called? We went to Bartronics in Chesterton. That's where we talked with the assistant chief at Valpo PD. And he said that a lot of agencies use them and they've been really happy with them. So I talked to, Bruce Rousseau, I think is the gentleman, and talked to him about our issues and kind of what we were looking for and what we currently had, and we could build off that and save some money. And that's what he suggests. I think they're like I think it's Hyzer.
but they're through Bartronics.
They are, yes, yes.
I think Debbie's quotes through Bartronics also. Could be wrong, but I think last time I looked, we talked about it.
They're using mobile.
But he quoted us, and they're like $400 radios. I mean, I think the sheriff's department, he said they use like $2,400 radios. I mean, they're so,
That's
they're,
these Motorola.
they're really nice, yeah, yeah. So these are kind of more handhelds, and that's what the signal goes to, is the handhelds and alerts, and it's like recording saying, address signal activated on probation south or probation north or back in detention, and then we can start making our way there, to that area to provide assistance. But Bruce felt like that repeater system, I think it was 50-watt repeater system, so the signal would go to that, and then it would just be broadcast, and that would carry anywhere within our facility. We get good signals between radios. The duress signal would not have any issues. And I think the other quote was for some additional handheld duress buttons that we were short.
This is for the entire facility. This isn't just detention center, but up front, we have 3 courts, we have a court software, we have that.
They should have security there.
Yeah.
Are they using Motorola radios or Bartronics radios?
They are using
When they work there.
security. Yeah, we posted one of ours up there, and then they have their own personal radios that they carry. I don't know what they use.
So they have both.
Yes,
Motorola and
there's,
Bartronics.
there's kind of stays stationary at their posts. So,
We don't have access to their
Yeah.
Motorola.
And then we have the probation offices up there.
Well,
so
if you
we
have the same, you just go to a channel. And if it just, I'm just, I'm not gonna. I'm sure, but, it'd be nice if we have one vendor. And everybody had the same radio vendor that could, and you can tweak it. You can go to a channel, you can talk to each other. You don't have to listen to sheriff's stuff all day long, but
sure,
when they're working security, they switch over to your frequency. And you don't need to have Bartronics radios and anyway, that's just for conversation.
Sure. Sure.
It doesn't make sense to me that we have you with Bartronics, 911 with Bartronics, and sheriff with Motorola, who knows what, I don't know what DMA has, I don't know what. But anyway, it's kind of where we are right now, that's for maybe another day.
I guess that's just something I wanted maybe some clarity on, if I could resubmit just the general to include those additional.
Is your request button on the radio or is it separate?
No, it's a handheld little white, button with the thumb push.
Don't they have radios where they have a address button? You can hit a button on the actual.
There
radio?
might be, but these are small and people can carry them on them, and they have them right at their desk.
Like a small remote for a car.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, so it's a lot more convenient, it's mobile, whereas
It is like, actually back
you
to
know,
detention.
the other alternative would buy radios for every officer, which was probably getting more expensive, so. But that was,
Sylvia had a question on that budget there.
Right, I noticed that you have it listed as a consultant name as Valparaiso for 9,500.
that was general fund? Okay, I think it's
Yeah, it's
Third page,
consultant, yeah.
consultants,
The toxicology, I think that's where.
no,
Or
it's,
software.
is it the 9,500?
Yeah.
Under professional services? I thought that was just also another, like, included autopsy, consult included autopsy if it was for the, yeah, we don't have.
We don't have
It's not
autopsy.
autopsy.
We don't have autopsies.
So that's why she wanted clarification.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I thought that was just where, like, could include autopsy for
Correct.
them, okay, so it's not. I'm not sure exactly what we're taking out of there, I'd have to look at our,
it's not being used for testing.
yeah, oh, you know what, is that,
That's what we.
that is, I apologize, that's for Quest, that is our database system. So we use that to pay for licensure and everything for our database system that we use for probation, the courts, detention.
They're,
So
they
they're not
consult
like
with us
that.
on that, yeah.
So those are the requests for the general fund,
I have a silly question.
Okay.
And I know they're completely separate, but I'm assuming that adult probation and juvenile probation can't share money.
yeah, I've never had that, yeah. never had
I
that
don't
asked.
think it's a silly question, I think it's definitely has never happened,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I don't know.
they're two completely different.
yeah, two separate departments, two different locations.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just asking if anyone's ever asked.
Is there a state requirement for a number of probation officers per resident?
They, what do they call it?
Workload measures.
Yeah, we have workload measures that we do, and then based on, different things like, how long it takes to do the assessments and the tools and provide reports and how many are taking place, that would give you suggestions on how many officers you need,
Oh, kind of like nursing acuity when they have.
so.
And the only other question I have is, I'm pleased to see there's zero in the amount, but you don't use paper for your office supply.
We get that through.
All general fund office supplies are paid for through the commission. So there are no specific budgets.
Are your departments recognized as public safety? State, state public safety?
Well, yes and no. I mean, sometimes we are and sometimes we aren't.
I know,
Depends on the
one
officer.
just, as far as,
What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, we are,
you are
when.
You are the
kids that
body,
in home
like,
detention or electronic
officially, are you
monitoring.
officially recognized as public safety?
Good question, I don't know.
Housing children to
It depends what they're talking about. I mean, when they're talking about, like, if we have to provide accountability to the community for our kids that are released from detention, but still on electronic monitoring or home detention, they have to get checked on. Public safety definitely in that regard. When COVID hit and they were trying to figure out who needed shots first and stuff, we were no longer public safety then, which I got. I'm not, but I mean, it's just, it depends, what they're talking about and everything, so. We just do what we're told.
But yet you state regulated, they have to tell you the amount of things you have to have.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the general fund? Okay, you want to move on to?
Nothing's changed there, it was 15,000, we supplement probation officer salaries, it's taking their salaries and then it's saving us from having to put them in the general fund essentially, so that fund doesn't make a whole lot of money, so we're able to take 3 individuals at 5,000 each, plus FICA for, we kind of had that for a couple of years that way. So that's sustained, and then the supplemental probation user fee fund 2150, we did have some changes there. We had some salaries coming out of that as well, but that fund has just not been able to sustain that. We've had budgeted for years, like around 120,000. At one point, we had that much in there. We've slowly worked down a surplus that we had in there. And I think now we're down to like 36,000 only right now surplus in there. And we're gonna kind of squeak through the rest of this year. So I needed to reduce that significantly to keep it, solvent. We're reducing, I had 18,430 out of there, reducing that to 2,500. It just came a little bit of the salary out of that. I'm taking out the hourly that I had in there to 0. And then FICA and perf is reflected as well in that. And then consultants line item, I'm taking from 9,000 to 5,000. And then data processing equipment, taking from 4,500 to 3,000.
Questions?
Which budget are we on the?
That was
Oh,
supplemental
this
juvenile
one
probation.
first,
That's what got me
anyway, the
confused.
second one.
Okay. Okay.
Change this.
Very happy with the reason we did that. One shot the whole thing.
Oh, he was excited. Fact that he put all these numbers in there. But it's because he doesn't have any money anymore.
That's what got my interest. If he doesn't have any money, how's it gonna sustain?
Well, see, these were the ones that he said there's a minimal balance. That one point in time was over $100,000. Now it's been reduced substantially.
Right, and these are fees that we collect from individuals, from the juveniles for probation costs and, user fees, and we do our best. We have compliance hearings that we hold to keep parents, accountable for what the court has ordered. And so we really do our best to try to keep that coming in as much as possible, but the state is pushing us more to divert kids, which is a good thing, to divert children when we can, when they're low risk offenses or when they're minor offenses. But diverting means we're not taking, through and collecting fees that we normally might collect, so.
What is the percentage of recidivism?
Recidivism?
Around kids?
Do you want to track at that? At the top of my head, I don't know, I'm sorry.
Are most of the kids Porter County?
I'm sorry?
Are most kids Porter County?
Yeah.
And you don't have any idea what recidivism is?
No, he knows what it is. He doesn't know. what the
I haven't
number
run
is.
the numbers, so I'd be happy to try to do that, see kind of what we,
I never heard that word before.
Recidivism? Yeah.
it's the likelihood that once they're involved
They
with
go
us,
in, they
they
go out.
we
they
get
come
another.
out.
Frequent flyers.
Do you want me to call and have somebody look it up for us, or it's in our annual report, we just.
Well, I guess they'll get.
Well, we'll have it at budget.
Are these programs, you think they're working?
We think that, yeah, we've seen,
All evidence-based
right,
programs.
right. You think we upped a couple years ago, we upped our home detention checks, and you'd think that we would have started getting a lot more violations, and we haven't seen that. Because I think the youth know that we're in the field, we're checking on them, they can at any given time be checked on, and so I think that they're complying more than they used to.
They aggressively perform home detention checks,
Do they wear monitors at all? Not very many, but some
Yes,
do.
some of them do, yeah.
And then-
But
Is
it's
that
not-
court order depending on the monitors, or can you guys make a recommendation, okay, if we let this, if we divert this, we want to monitor? How does that-
We do it depending on risk level, if they're not such a risk that they need to remain in detention,
Right.
but we want to keep a little bit extra eye on them, we'll do a monitor, right? Or if it's maybe a sex offense case, we want to make sure that they're not going anywhere they shouldn't, and we employ it then, so.
So the home detention officers and those home detention officers are essentially probation officers and detention officers who just, when they're assigned to do the home detention checks, we're starting to refer to them as home detention officers, but they're just probation and detention officers. But they go out frequently, they're out there, 4 or 5 days a week. They're notorious, and the kids have learned this real quick, that they'll come by and maybe do a check at 3:30. And originally the kids were like, oh, good, they're done, and they'd sit at home, put themselves out in the community up to no good. Well, our officers circle back around, they're back there again at 5, or maybe they're back there again at 7:30 and stuff, so kids learned that they really couldn't do that anymore and stuff, so. And that is, of course, is very key when we're dealing with our kids that have, addiction issues and things like that, So,
I've said this before, I'll say it again, I would much rather invest in our juvenile services and have some programs there to try and help these kids. Than the jail where we have people coming in from Chicago, LaPorte, Michigan City, and quite frankly, when you're 40 years old, what I would, like I said, I would do the minimum state requirements for that jail. That's it.
Guys kinda
And-
cast
And that's why I said it's just kind of crazy that we don't put the resources towards the young kid who are Porter County kids. But then we're, in my opinion, we're worried about, 30, 40, 50-year-old people that still don't get it. And then we're expecting to think they're gonna get it one day. Well, at least these kids could have an opportunity to get it, and we won't see them again, hopefully, God willing, but,
And we're seeing good success with the teen court program that we have, where they're, these kids have to come in and sit
yeah.
in front of
kinda
kids their
their
age
age and say, hey, you
and talk
screwed
about the
up.
offense and what they did.
Right, yeah.
And then these kids get to decide their fate, and we're not seeing a lot of recidivism with that. I mean, we
I didn't think that was gonna be a big deal, honestly, I was like.
teen court,
Yeah,
yeah,
but they are more bothered by sitting there in front of their peers and being judged than they.
Oh,
are-
100%.
They have no problem
Him,
learning,
her,
and stuff
whatever.
like that.
Yeah, that's a big deal,
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's pretty,
Yeah.
pretty impactful for them, and I didn't think that would be, part of the, what you saw, but it is, so. Our staff runs the teen court, so our staff plays the role of the judge, and the prosecutor and public defender. And then, the peers are in the jury roles.
And we hold it in the magistrate's courtroom. So we try to make it as realistic as a setting as possible.
And then the youth that participate have to come back and be part of the jury.
Yeah.
So they get to come back and be future ones, yeah, and decide.
And that's fairly interesting too. So,
We had it last night and the jury was 3 girls and they were pretty tough. Kids.
Oh,
Yeah, they were.
yeah. When does the health department's gonna, is it next Thursday? Health department's coming?
No, our last one, we saved the biggies.
Sure.
Sheriff and prosecutors.
That's safe.
I thought the health department was gonna come
Yeah.
to a Thursday meeting.
No. They're pretty much, they got the money, they don't.
Self-sustained.
Well, that's, that's, I was hoping we could see him on Thursday, because I'd like to ask him about this, but I mean, like I said, if we can't take care of our own kids with mental health and stuff like this, and in my opinion, that's what this money should be used for. I mean,
Well, since we have our dates set up for
I
the
mean, they
budget,
do vaping programs, we do I mean, sometimes, we keep duplicating services, the schools do vaping programs now, the health departments do, you do vaping programs, like, well, why don't the health department help you do vaping programs, give your LPNs, give your, your nurses and kind of do programs with you, which are most vulnerable, in my opinion, which is our kids who are having issues. I mean,
And they
it
want-
makes sense to me.
Last meeting that Sylvia and I attended with these guys, we had mentioned this before. that
Yeah.
Things that they could do for the opioid money, such as the vaping and other items that they could hit the health department up for some of this money.
Whether it be opioid or health
And
department
any-
money or
Yeah,
SB4
anything
money,
else, right.
all that stuff. I mean, that just needs common sense.
I have enough time if you want me to, bring health in.
I would love to have help them and talk with them, to be honest with you, I would.
I did talk with Allison, remember I said the health department has all this money, I talked with them,
Yeah.
Right.
but nothing ever.
No, we talked with them in this room.
Yeah. whatever you need with them.
Yeah, we're ready, the proposal's almost done, and we're gonna be presenting it to them next week and then asking them to have another sit down, because they wanna help us craft it in a good way.
they've been good. They're just talking to the whatever board they answer.
Well, if you get too much money from the health department, they're gonna want to incorporate, what, I don't know. This is local, but it's state controlled.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, it just makes
And
sense
it
for our
makes sense,
kids. I mean, if
because-
health problems and.
I think a good question is to ask the sheriff's department what the recidivism rate is, because it's gonna be high
Yeah, we all.
It's very, what we said for what, right?
for their programs that they have, the drug programs.
Listen, I'm gonna be, Sylvia, I'll be quite honest with you, and I'll say this to anybody. Again, if it were me, I would do minimal programs at that jail. I mean, I look every day, I see Michigan City, Chicago. Quite frankly, I don't wanna pay for people that are committing crimes in my county. I wanna take care of my kids who are here, that we have problems, and try and help them. And
I
that's just-
agree.
That's where I'm at with that, I figure if you're 40 and you're still committing crimes, I would make it as tough as humanly possible in that jail. So you don't wanna go back. Like, I would make it comfortable, but that's.
So I'm not gonna be speeding anymore.
Well, it's just me, but I mean, at least the kids, for God's sake, they at least have an opportunity to try and, have them. Work their way around.
Brain development.
Hey,
Yeah.
Until 25, right?
25, 26.
Yeah. So there's that chance to turn them around.
So,
Sylvia, I apologize. I feel very stupid that we can't answer your recidivism rate question, but I was talking with Monica and she said that in our diversion programs alone, that we have, at least an 80% success rate of not recidivating. So,
Yeah, that's with our home detention kids, our teen court,
That is awesome.
day reporting.
That is-
yeah.
That,
Oh, no, that's.
80% is the
They don't wanna
lowest
come
we
back.
have. They go,
They
it was
don't
an
know.
80 to 90%
Yeah.
success
the
rate for the
interesting one to look at would
alternative
be
programs.
those kids who aren't on any specialized program, or just on the traditional course of probation to see what that recidivism rate is. And I would wager a guess that that's high, so.
Well, we're gonna see you again.
Okay, we will get the annual report and that recidivism number to you. Guys. We'll make sure we do that. tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,
We, I didn't have it.